Hi everyone, thank you for joining. We're just going to give everyone a few seconds to join the call. Thanks for joining this webinar on data privacy. We're going to have a demonstration of this new product in action, and we're also going to take a quick look at the roadmap as well. So it's going to be a great session. I think we have now, yes, we've got plenty of people joining, so we will kick off. I will pass over to Kobi and Assaf to give us a brief introduction. Do you want to go ahead, guys?
Okay, so my name is Kobi, Director of Product Management in Imperva, leading data security and data privacy.
My name is Assaf. I'm the Technical Product Manager for Data Privacy in Imperva.
Awesome. Okay, so just to get us going, we're going to do a couple of quick polls to see where everybody is with their own data privacy journey. So I'm going to launch the first poll here about your compliance requirements. So does your company need to comply with data privacy regulations, such as GDPR, CCPA, LGPD? If you want to just pop in your answer there, and I'll give it a few more minutes and then I'll end the polling. I'm just seeing the answers coming in here, and it seems like everybody knows what's going on. Please feel free to pop any questions that you have into the chat in the meantime. And I'm going to end this poll in a couple of seconds. Okay, 3, 2, 1. And I'll share the results. So everybody knows we've got a lot of important data privacy regulations that need to be adhered to now. So yeah, I'm guessing you're not too surprised by those results, Kobi. There is one other poll along the same line there that I'm just going to launch now as well. Stop sharing those results. And just 1 second. Okay, another similar poll just to get a general idea. Okay, I'm going to give that a few more seconds.
That one's getting a lot of traction. Good question, guys.
Yeah. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Ooh. Okay, and there's the results for those as well. So a little bit more of a variation there. Okay. Right, I'll hand it over now to Kobi if you'd like to kick off with your section of the webinar.
So thank you very much. We are very happy to announce that we are launching a new product in Imperva. It's called Imperva Data Privacy. Okay, and the reason that we have decided eventually to enter the market, it can be seen in this first slide. The amount of data privacy regulations across the world is rising all the time. Look at the US map. There are many states that are currently working on and promoting on their own data privacy, similar to the CCPA one. And if you look at the world map, you can see many data privacy regulations as well. And for many of us, if we have many data subjects or end users, consumers across the world, we will be required to adhere with many of those data privacy regulations. Okay, so key questions that you need to ask yourself and understand whether data privacy is something that you should worry on. If you don't know how to answer those questions, then you could be in a big trouble. Like, whose data do we hold? Where are we holding the data? How are we protecting the data? How can we find the data today if there are some requests such as right to be forgotten? Who uses the data and who has access privileges to the data? Those are the questions that you will be asked either during the data privacy audit, or you will be able, you'll need to avoid the penalties of GDPR. And those penalties, by the way, are published all over the World Wide Web. You can see the size and the number of data privacy violations. So when you look at the solution that needs to be implemented in order to adhere to such a data privacy regulation, you need to implement many processes, integrate to many systems, could be hundreds of systems, and provide views and visibility for different personas. Okay, like asset management, you need to integrate with IT to understand where are those assets that may include sensitive data. And you need to integrate with customer support and or IT service desk systems in order to be able to fulfill the data subject request. Work with your data officers, DBAs, technological owners, in order to understand what kind of sensitive data is stored and what are the tasks that need to be done in order to fulfill data subject requests. Monitor compliance, show some reports to the auditor, and then managing risk, be able to implement security controls for the data sources that may include sensitive data, and provide the reports for the data privacy team. Okay, so normally what we've seen is that customers needs to implement several products in order to handle all of this solution. In our case, with Imperva, you will be able to use one platform that can support all of those use cases, which is the Sonar platform that we are leveraging in order to build a data privacy solution. And we also use it for data and database security. Okay, so what are the main capabilities of our data privacy solution? One capability that you will be able to leverage is the sensitive data management capability that scan many data sources in your environment, not only databases, but also data lakes, and very soon also documents. We will be able to scan personal identifiable information, support both structured data, unstructured data, or semi-structured data, like your MongoDBs and Hadoop and DynamoDBs, and also be able to scan directories and files of many different formats. And what we do, we also focus on correlated attribute PIIs, which means that we would like to correlate, your passport ID, social security number, and email address, and understand that all of them relates to a certain identity. And this is very important in order to fulfill a data subject request, because when a specific data subject could be each one of us, by the way, that has an account on either a bank or a United Airlines, be it any kind of company, okay, that store our sensitive data, we have the right to ask many different kind of requests, such as right for data portability or right for access, right to be forgotten, and so on. And per GDPR, any kind of company that store your sensitive data needs to fulfill the request in 30 days. Per CCPA, they need to fulfill the request in 45 days. And per LGPD, it needs to be fulfilled in 15 days, okay? And this is only one small example about the differences between the data privacy regulations, and all of this will have to be done automatically, assuming you have end users across the world. Okay, so data subject request is a complete workflow that we've built in Sonar platform that can support all the data requests that are being sent from all data subjects, and we automate this process. So potentially we will help you to avoid SLA violations if you don't fulfill the request on time. And this is why we also measure the service level agreement and understand whether a request is going to violate and pass the due date. Okay, and you will be able to see a demo later on of the data subject request workflow that Assaf will present. The next thing that we will focus on is data process impact assessment, be able to gather lots of information that we already have, like audit activities, entitlements, And so customers will be able to understand who has access privileges, who actually access the data sources and access sensitive data. It's something that can be done automatically because most of our customers already use database activity monitoring, and we already monitor the activities to those databases. So that's a huge opportunity for many of you to leverage a functionality that without Imperva requires lots of consultancy. Okay. In addition, we have in Sonar capabilities like managing breaches, running playbooks. Whenever there is like an alert or on a sensitive data or a specific finding, like a sensitive data was discovered in a specific data source, you can decide to run some workflow, update the data owner, and implement the right controls, like implement a policy, for example. Okay, so this is where we are heading with the data privacy solution. What we have currently is the sensitive data management, which is quite robust and includes lots of scanners. This is, again, not the related to the classification scans of the MX, but a different capability. Okay. So if there are no questions, then I can hand off to Assaf to show you a real life demo of the data privacy product.
Shall I take over?
Yes, please.
Okay. Hi, guys. Nice to meet you all. I'm going to share with you our application. So before I start, a bit of a background of what we did and what was our thought process. So SDM is a sensitive data management application where the user can run a scan, see the results, manage the results, and basically understand how they impact his environment and his company. So how are we going to do this, and how the way I'm going to explain it is we're going to follow a storyline. Basically, it's a user story that we researched and tried to understand what's the best way to help the users the GDPR and other compliances. So the first thing that the user would like to do, and basically the main idea is, given a known database or data source, the user wants to scan it and discover the sensitive data to assess the data impact and take the relevant procedure in order to protect it. Okay, so that's the main idea. Let's break it down. Now, you already have a data source in your environment. What do you want to do? So the first thing that you want to do is run a scan. So given that you have an asset in connection, you would like to define a scan to search for PII and classify your asset. So how are we going to do that? So in the SDM applications, as you can see, we have 5 tabs. We're going to follow each tab, and you will see we're going to tell the story, and we're going to follow the tabs at the same time. So the first thing that you're going to do as a user, you would like to define a scan. In this tab, you will see all your scheduled scans and all your scan definitions. Each scan has a few traits that you can change. For example, you can schedule a scan to run in the future. You can schedule a scan to run periodically. You can also define a scan to run just now, just once, and that's it. Of course, you can also define what you want to scan. What is the type of data that you're looking? You can look for financial information. You can look for locations or personal information. It depends on what the type of scan that you want to define. Another thing that we allow the user is to include or exclude a list of objects. So, for example, you know that in your data source, you have some DBs or some locations which are fake or are just for test or duplication of your database. And you don't want to spend time scanning them, or you don't want the results. You can easily include or exclude them from from the get-go, from the start. You can just define and exclude or include them. In this tab, we also allow the user to see some detector definitions. The detectors are a way for you to for the user to search for and classify for data. So as you can see the detectors, their type, and labels. What are labels? Labels are basically a list of detectors. You can define what a list of detectors. If you want to define a new list of detectors, a new label, you can easily do it from the GUI with no problem. As I mentioned before, you can exclude lists. How can you exclude lists and how you can create a list of objects? So as you can see here, our locations. On the right side, there are locations that you can define. And on the left side, you can define a list of locations that include the different locations that you define on the right side. Basically, that's the idea of this tab. Now, once we define the scan, we want to run the scan, okay? So given the scan was sent, the user would like to monitor it to see the progress and make sure the scan is completed. So where we're doing this and how are we going to do this? For that purpose, we have the monitor tab. As you can see in the monitor tab, you can see some statistics on the scans that you already sent in the past. And if we had a scan running right now, you could see it here in progress scan. That's about it regarding the visualizations. Some other views that we give here are the history of scans, what their status, and also scans that return with no sensitive data. So that's right now the build and the monitor tab are focusing on the scan itself. We know that there is a need for these tabs because people need to understand what they're scanning. They need to define what they're scanning and how are they going to see the results in the end. Now we're going to dive into the management part of SDM. So we already defined a scan, we send a scan, we monitor the scan. Now we would like to validate the results so the only data that needs attention or monitoring is available. How are we going to do that? We're going to use the validate page or tab. Now this tab is very, very powerful. This is kind of the place where the data owner or the architect or the people that are in charge are going to work on. What do we have here? I'll do a quick explanation on the page and the different things that we see here, and later on we'll talk about the actions that we can take. Okay, so as you can see, there are predefined filters. These predefined filters are filters that you can use. They're customizable, but they're already up there out of the box. Why are they there? As you can see, the predefined filters remove any results that we already ignored, any results that are duplications, on any results that were remediated. I'll talk about it in the future, and any results that are in status done. So what are these results that I'm talking about? This page is a representation of the scan of basically the data that we classified in the data source. So what can we see here? Every row here represents a hit with a specific classification, which you can see here, the detector name, okay, in this field. So that means that in this table, in this field, in this asset, we detected a type of data, which is a state or province abbreviation. The number of rows that we scanned here is this one, and we found 541 matches. Okay, so that's how we show the user the results. That's the first representation for the results.
Hey Assaf, there are some questions in the in the room. So first question is, are we actually storing any sensitive data in the product?
So no, we don't store any sensitive data in the product. The only thing that you'll see here is metadata. So we're not storing any sensitive data. We don't do that.
Okay, another question, anything that needed to be installed on the data source?
No, we don't need to install anything on the data source. Yeah.
Okay.
Any other question?
Yeah, I mean, is it possible loading data? Like, what kind of scanners do we? What kind of data sources can be scanned?
Okay, so we support quite a few data sources. We support data sources such as MySQL, Postgres, MS SQL, Oracle, of course, Snowflake, Teradata, Hive, Netezza, DB2, Sybase ASC. You can find the complete data sources on our documentation, but this list is just growing by every day.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. That's it for this minute.
Thank you.
I have one other question that just came through in the chat there. Is it possible to run reports on the results? This may be coming up, but
yeah, it's a bit of a futuristic question, but yes, you can run reports. You can create reports. I'll show the reports that we give that you can show, but reports is one of our strongest suits. Like we can create any report that you want. We have our own database that we can control and basically get any analytical view that you would like to have. So I'll go back to where I left. So we talked about this validate tab. Now, what do we want to do? We figured we're going to talk about big data. We're going to talk about many results. We don't going to have here 10 or 15 results. We're going to have here many results, thousands, maybe 100,000, maybe even millions. We're going to have a lot of results. How are we going to use it? So for that, you can filter and you can focus. So that's the first thing you're going to do. As a user, we imagine that the first thing that you want to do is filter. So filter and focus. So let's say I want to go and look at, for example, on this field. Okay, so I'll look at this field, which is address field, and I can see that I got hit with these detectors. Okay, that's great. Now, we want to cut short the validation part. Instead of the user instead of letting the user go to the data source itself and make sure that this is a really US address or anything like that, we added a feature or the ability to fetch a sample of the data. So, for example, if I'll just do that, I will show the data that I'm going to see the data that I detected. Now, you might say, oh, what is this sensitive data? So we don't save this sensitive data. Once I press this X, this data is nowhere to be found. It's not in the logs. You will never find it. But if you want to validate it, you can see it. Another good point to add is that only the specific persona that is allowed to use SDM can see it. Okay, not everyone can do it. Also, we have a trail that record actions like that. Okay, because we're aware to how important it is. Okay, so now that we focused on a specific field or column, the next thing that we would like to do is to apply an action. So here I can apply an action, and what is this action? With this action, I can enrich the information. So once we validated the results, we want to basically enrich it. What does it mean to enrich it? It means to add a risk to it. It means to assign it to someone. It means to whether we would like to write a note on the results. We can ignore these results. We can also change their status. Each result has a status, and you, as a user, you can sign it off and say, okay, I'm done with this. This is great. This is exactly what I wanted. So you can define a risk. You can also tag it if you would like to, or untag it. Depends on the policy in the company. Once you've done that, you'll see the risk and the tag here, and you can also filter by it. And of course, now when I say why do you want to enrich it? Well, enriching the information with prior knowledge help you as a user and your managers to understand what is the risk assessment for that asset. It also helps you understand what is the volume, what are the type of data that you have, and basically in the future create reports and see the bigger picture of that asset. A short thing that I want to add, as you've seen, I pressed the apply action tool. If it's a repetitive action, we have another feature here where you can record this action and replay it, and it will replay it automatically whenever the same type of data comes back to SDM, and therefore you don't need to do the same action, to apply the same action again and again. It's a decision from that the user can take. That's about it regarding actions. As you can see, the other feature that we thought about is creating a ticket. So you can create a ticket for the results. The ticket is allowing you to focus on a specific group of results or just on one result. You can assign it to different users and distribute the workload on other users by using the ticket mechanism. And here you can define who's the assignee, what's the organization. Do you want to create a ticket per row, or you just want to create a ticket for the whole group? And what's the status? We can elaborate on the workflow in the future, but on the workflow for the tickets, I mean. But let's stop here. I think that's enough for now for this page. Another small thing that you might have seen when I pressed here is remediate. We've been started remediation process from this page as well, but this is another workflow that we can discuss about it later or maybe next time. But we support also a remediation process for every result.
Yeah, there are many questions in the chat room, so we may want to have a pause and answer those questions. First question from Rock. How come with Sonar you are promoting gathering data without agent and using DB audit, which is causing impact on resources? Is DB audit able to also provide responses? How do you create a report who has view data about I imagine PII person for last year based on query, condition, or responses? So first of all, our scanners, you want to answer this, Assaf, or should I take it?
Can you take it? I'm looking for to read it.
Audit. The audit is something that can be captured from the transit, and we actually scan data directly from the tables. So this is a main difference. We don't use the DB audit to understand where sensitive data is stored. We will be able to actually correlate the actual usage, okay, of sensitive data, who can actually access the sensitive data and provide this kind of information. So that can be very useful for users to understand who actually access the data. Regarding the response, we don't always capture the response in the database security. This is done, understanding where sensitive data is being stored is done using the scanners. Okay, I hope it makes sense. Another question, you mentioned scanning known databases. What do we do for unknown databases? So unknown databases, I can imagine databases that we do not support. So we have a list of databases or data lakes or any kind of data sources that we want to also scan. And this is something that usually can be requested by customers to our user voice system, and then we prioritize those requests and provide a scanner for any kind of source. In general, we can scan lots of databases and data lakes, and very soon all types of documents as well. More questions. There are many questions. How can you run reports if we do not store any data? That's for you, Assaf.
Okay, so you can run reports. So we don't need the data itself in order to understand what we classify, right? You can have credit card numbers, and we classify that as a credit card number. I don't need the content. And now I know that those are the types of data. This is the type of data that I have. I also know the volume of data, and therefore I can create a report quite easily just based on the metadata that we found. I hope that answered your question. And I see here another question: is the history of these actions of the changes kept anywhere for report? Yes. So we keep that. We keep the actions. Everything that you see here that we applied are playbooks. All these playbooks are also logged, and also we can also create a report of the actions that were taken on this dashboard or tab. Yeah, so you can see.
Okay, go ahead.
The next question I said is explain what do you mean by a ticket. Yeah, so you can create a ticket. Is I'm not going to show it today, but a ticket will open in another workflow in Imperva. You'll see another workflow that is based just on a transition. Okay, the ticket, you can have there a whole the ticket will be open per a person. You can start work on it. You can the ticket can be in progress. It can be blocked. It can move to another state, and it can also be signed off. The workflow that we allow the user to basically we allow the user to create and customize it any way that you would like to. We can maybe address it later on, but it's another workflow that you can basically use. Shall I continue? Okay. So once we, I'll try to go back to the user story. So so far we have sent a scan, we defined a scan, we send a scan, we focused on a bunch of on some data. We filtered, we validated it, and we also enriched the data. Now the next thing that we want to see is how is this going to look like? Where am I going to see it, and how is it going to look like? So if I'll go to the next tab, which is the Analyze tab, here I can see all the sensitive data and order status. I can see the volume of data and per asset. Okay, the more data we found and classified and detected, the bigger this circle will be. You can see the top 10 labels, top 10 detectors, and also some scan hits by asset and number of detected locations. Also, there is a way also to filter here. If I'll just press in progress, I can see the specific results that are in progress. What are the labels? What are the detectors that that are relevant for these results? And of course, it will filter the other visualization as well. And that way, the user or the executive can drill down and understand and have a better view on his asset and assess the impact on the asset. Or from this point of view, for example, if you can see as a user, oh, I have a lot, the volume of data that I have for this asset is quite big and it's very risky, I should probably audit it, or I should probably focus on it and protect it. Another thing that I would like to mention that I skipped in the validate tab is, I mentioned this one, this table shows every result. We have another table here which shows aggregated results. It groups all the results per asset in DB and brings some statistics. This is not just for review. As a user, you can apply actions to the whole grouping at once and create a ticket or apply any actions that you want for the whole group. So we already do some group analysis and group aggregation to see the results in a bigger picture. And yeah, that's
another question that we have in the chat room. By scanning the database, do you also check which view is accessing classified data? More important, if you check view design.
That's a good question. I'll have to get back to you about this question. Thank you for that. Kobi, before I move on to SR, is there anything else?
Yeah, one thing that I saw another question in the past is whether it is at all dependent on the MX classification in SecureSphere.
So no, we're not dependent on the MX classification, SecureSphere. We designed a new scanner that will scan the data sources, but we can also integrate with the MX and SecureSphere. Therefore, you will not, if you already use them, you will not lose any information, and the idea is to have a centralized application that holds all the data. That's something that's very important for us. The ability to ingest and insert data to the application is very easy, can be done very easily, and that's one of the core values for this for our application. So I see another question. It may appear that Imperva is now promoting agentless audit with Sonar instead of agent-based audit. However, the truth is that both methods have strengths versus the other. Imperva is supporting your option to leverage. Oh, it's not a question. Okay. So the next thing I want to go over is SRR, and let's move on to the next application. Before we started, I want to discuss a bit of a background for SRR. So what's an SRR? SRR is subject right request. So if you'll see here, the first thing that I want to discuss about, and it's very, very important because the way we created the workflow, we had to think about the different users that are going to use this application. So once the request is uploaded, there are a few people that are going to take care of it. The first one will be a person which is a DPO or someone from the DPO office, and also a data officer or a data owner or an asset owner that will take care of their results. Those 2 or 3 personas are both going to use the application in different stages, but they're very important for the organization because one is an expert from the law perspective, and the other is more an expert from the asset and knowledge of the data that the company holds. So this is already the start of the workflow. We're going to have a request that will be uploaded. We're going to have a triage. between the different requests and different needs, and then a data officer will have to take care of them. And in the end, the DPO will have to sign it off and make sure the request was fulfilled. Now, let's dive into the story itself and the basic idea. I just want to say one thing. This flow and this workflow is taken from Gartner. We learned a lot from them, so thank you. The workflow that we're suggesting and using is, we can see it in this example. The first thing that we're going to do, we're going to have a subject is going to, a request is going to be uploaded. For that, then we'll have to search for the subject's information and details. Once we did that, we will just use the triage. I'll show the triage idea in the application, and we'll have to search for the user's details and understand it. The next thing that we'll do is validate the data, make sure that this is the right data, and also we'll have to generate a report that includes all the relevant data for that specific subject. And by that, we'll fulfill the request itself. So how are we going to do it, and how is it going to be done in the SDM application, in the SRR application? So the first thing that we're seeing here is actually not a part of the workflow, is more for the DPO. The DPO should have, we thought about the DPO and we thought about him in the executive point of view of, he needs to know what is the status. He needs to know what is the workload. He needs to understand how are things are working. Is it smooth? Is it missing resources, etc. So that's why we created this executive dashboard in the SRR application, where the user can see request status per assignee. So if one assignee that is owning a request has a lot of work, and you can see it here. You can see the requests that are open or closed per day, average time of completion per SRR type, and also we're grouping here requests and per time frame for how long we've left with to fulfill the request. Okay, so from here we have, for these two, we have between 15 and 19 days to fulfill the request, and that's just an example for the executive dashboard. So the next thing that I'm going to talk about is the flow itself. So what are we going to do? So the idea is the user receives a subject request and it would like to fulfill it. The first thing that needs to be done is the data discovery. Given the subject details, the user wants to search for the subject information in all the data sources that he owns. So now I talked before about the person or the user is going to use it. The person is someone from the DPO office. As you can see, this tab is this first tab, and the owner of the request is someone from the DPO office, and he's going to handle the request from this page or all the requests. So at first, you can see that we have some statistics. We have the flow of the ticket, and you can also see some statistics about the request, the task per data owner, which I will explain in a few minutes. But one of the things that we allow here is, for example, if the user would like to just filter by pending deletion, you'll see all the requests that are occur pending deletion. If you want to see all the requests, you can see all of them here. And that's just the view of this tab. Now, what are we going to do in this view? As a user, as a DPO, I got a request. The next thing that I would like to do is initiate a search. Okay, now you would think, okay, so now I need to search for the subject details in all of my assets that we own. Then that sounds a bit weird because it probably will take a long time. Here, we're doing a smarter search, a more effective search. If I'll, for example, if I'll take, for example, this specific request, the first thing that I can see is that I have all the assets that I own. Then the other thing that I can see is when was the last time I sent a scan on this asset, and why is that important? I want to initiate a scan and to run a scan to search for the users or the subject details. Since I already have the SDM knows where is the PI located. Therefore, when I send a scan and search for the PI for the subject information, it'll be better or more efficient if I'll search for the PI for the subject information in locations that I already know that PII exists in. By that, I will make the scan more efficient and more focused, and of course, it will take less time. So that's an option. It's our default. As a user, you can define if you want to do that. You can also toggle this off, and then we'll search the whole asset. But that's about it regarding the scan. Once I submit it, it will go into data discovery. As you can see the flow, and then from data discovery, it will triage it according to the different type of request to the right type. Now, as a DPO, I sent a scan, I initiated a search for the subject information. Now I want to focus, okay? I want to work on a specific request. How do I do that? What do I do? For that purpose, we created another tab, request details. How do I get to this tab? I can simply press it, or I can also, for example, just press one of the links, and it will open the next tab with the request and with the specific task for each request. Now, what are these tasks and what are the results? So I'm going to step back. We initiated a search. We found results. Where are these results? These results are then distributed per asset owner. So every asset owner is going to get his own task and his own results. You can see that the results here are distributed between the assets, and there is an asset owner for each task. Each task is owned by the asset owner, and he is the person that's supposed to fulfill and basically validate it. Okay. So now we can see that this page is specifically for the request. Excuse me, for the DPO, and you can see the specific request. You can see the task. You can see also what is the resolution. But now, where is the data owner? So the data owner has his own tab, and his tab here, you can see his tasks. Okay. So for example, if I'll just focus on this request, this is his task. You can focus on this task, and if we'll extend the view, you'll see what are the categories that we have here, where did we find it, and how many hits, and what's the confidence that we actually found this specific subject information. Same thing for his address. Once the user validated this information, he can verify the results. What does it mean? He can include these results in a future report that the DPO will create. You can also add notes, and these notes will be included in the report itself. Another feature that we thought about that the asset owner would like to know, is discover view detectors. What does it mean? So we create our own detectors for every subject. Every subject has its own information. Now, maybe we thought about the asset owner. Maybe he probably would like to go to the asset itself, and sometimes he'll have to rectify information, delete information, and do anything like that. He needs to know what's the data, how we look for the data. So if he just press view detectors, he will eventually see the detectors that we used or the regexes that we use in order to find the user's information. I need to say that Not everyone can do that. Only people with the right security level can use it, because you might see some sensitive information there. And of course, this action will be logged, and you can follow it up later on. So as a
Assaf?
data owner, yes.
Hi there. Sorry, I just want to flag the time for you. We've got about 8 minutes left and some questions to answer. So just to make you aware of that, if you want to.
No problem. Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you. So we were discussing about the data owner. The data owner has his own task. Each task is related to a request. And what we've done so far was to include the results that we verified into a report. And the next thing that we need to do is update the task and change it into verified. Once I've done that, I've finished my task as a task owner, asset owner, and the request could go to the next stage. The next stage is from the DPO perspective. We said that the request owner is someone from the DPO office, and therefore he will be here in the. He can go to his tab, which is designed for him, and he can generate a report. You can just generate a report. I need to say that you can generate a report only once all the tasks were either verified or ignored. Of course, one of the things that I didn't mention before, you can assign requests to new owners. You can assign tasks to other asset owners if you would like to distribute the task between different people. And yeah, when you and that's it. So we finished with the demo for the SRR. I'm open to questions.
That's great. Thank you so much for that, Assaf. So we've had a few different questions. Kobi, I don't know if you want me to just go ahead and ask them, or if there's some that you have seen, you want me to go ahead? Okay, one particular one was, will this work on data this encrypted at rest, for example, Oracle or TDE? Does that make sense? On data that's encrypted at rest, for example, Oracle, TDE?
I need to actually look into it.
Sure. Let me see another one here. So how do you create a report who has viewed data about VIP person for last year based on a query condition or responses?
How can you create a query for what?
How do you create a report who has a view data about VIP person for the last year based on a query condition or responses?
I believe it more relates to database activity monitoring and the ability to actually audit the response. It's not part of data privacy, it's part of database activity monitoring. Okay, and also something that needs to, it really matters what kind of database need to be audited. Okay, so we can schedule a follow-up meeting about this topic.
Perfect. Another question is, do we have a specific form to request a supplier to forget our data? For example, a courier company which possibly holds our employees' data, or do we just ask them to destroy the data? What is the process when leaving suppliers?
So we do have a capability to load data subject request from any source. We will also able to provide our own form that customers can use in their website. That's something that we are planning to do.
Okay. What are the requirements to run the application, like permissions and rights, etc.?
For SRR and SDM, the permissions that you need in order to use these applications are basic read permissions.
What was that again? Sorry, Assaf, they're what permissions?
Just basic read permissions.
Okay, perfect. And let me see what else we've got here. I think, correct me if you've already addressed this one. How can you run reports if we do not store any data? Did you answer that one during the demo? You did. Okay, cool. And let me see. Sorry, I'm just trying to scroll through these to make sure we get. I think that might be them for now. Is the DB audit able to also provide responses?
We just answered this.
You've answered that one just now. Okay, perfect. Well, I think that is all the questions we have now. Let me just double check the chat in case anything has come through in the last minute there. Nope, that's us for now. So Assaf and Kobi, thank you so much for joining us and for all of this really great information. To everyone who's attended, thank you for your time as well. We will post a recording of this on Community, so keep an eye out there. Oh, Kobi, do you want to mention the beta testing actually?
Yes, we also have a beta program that we offer. The value for you is to work with us and understand how to implement a data privacy solution, working closely with us, Assaf and myself. So I think it's a great opportunity for you, especially if you have already invested in database activity monitoring and you already define, all the assets with the sensitive data. We will be able to also help you to realize the value of data privacy with our product.
For now then, that's us. Thanks once again to Kobi and Assaf, and thanks to the rest of you for joining. Please be sure to join us on Community and to ask any questions that you have on there as well. Thanks so much. See you at the next event.